I'm the accidental VC. Right? I didn't go to business school. I didn't have a finance degree. I was a journalist. In my 30s, the things that were most important to me, I was still able to live them out. But the thing that was hardest for me was that the more success I had, the worse I felt. The more I returned to I know who I am. I know what is my work to do. I know what that through line is. That's what it means to me.
It means you're not distracted with all of this other stuff on the landscape, and you're more focused on, who you are and how you're going to show up.
Welcome to the Midlife Chrysalis podcast with Chip Conley.
Welcome to the Midlife Chrysalis and my episode with Jerry Colonna, my brother from another mother. He's been known as the CEO Whisperer, one of the most famous leadership coaches in the world. He was a venture capitalist and became a Buddhist coach. And he gets a little cracked up emotionally in this episode because we go very, very deep. So be prepared to jump into the deep end of the swimming pool with me and Jerry.
Hello, Jerry.
Hello, Chip. How are you?
I'm good. We just.
No. How are you? Really?
I am good. I think I'm well. I was lucky enough to teach with you here at MEA this week. And you carried more of the load than I did, which is much appreciated because I'm teaching this next week as well. So I love hanging out with you.
Yeah.
I think the group was very surprised. Our cohort was very surprised when Jerry said this is the second time we've ever spent time together in person.
Right.
And yet, as you've said, we're brothers from different mothers.
Yeah.
I want to really explore this idea of the midlife chrysalis with you.
Sure.
But let's give a little bit of background. You were one of the first VCs and maybe one of the best known VCs in New York, and one of the first VCs, Flatiron Partners with your partner Fred Wilson.
Right.
That was focused on the internet. Back in the mid-90s.
Back in the day, back when everybody was like AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah.
Oh, or CompuServe and Delphi. I mean, that's how old I am.
Oh my God. And you're younger than me, so that shows how old I am. So long story short is you were a young VC, and at some point you got to a place where you didn't want to be a VC anymore, and you ended up becoming the CEO Whisperer, a term that has been used to describe you because there are lots and lots of very famous personalities and CEOs and the like that have had you as their coach. Give us a little bit of background on this life arc that took you from being a Brooklyn boy whose father lost his job, was disrupted because of technology.
In his midlife.
That's right. To someone who was on the hedonic treadmill.
Yeah.
And then said at age 38, this ain't working for me.
First of all, it's just amazing to be with you in person. And to co-teach with you is just a delight. I mean, I was writing about it in my journal this morning. It's life affirming. And so if I could give you a little bit of a break and carry part of the load,
thank you.
That's super easy. I am always struck by the ease with which our relationship unfolds. And here we are, right, having that conversation. Okay, so let me put all that to the side and get to your question, because I will wander all over the place. But I think that the way to understand that midlife transition, that chrysalis, and I guess to use the terminology, at about 37, 38 years old, the caterpillar, I guess, started to enter the chrysalis. Because as you well know, it's not like a switch gets thrown and all of a sudden you're just like, you're not even sure what the hell is happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? It's like something is not right. I mean, and as we've talked before, I often think about that poem by Donald Justice, Men at 40. And there's a line in there where he talks about like feeling yourself on the deck of a ship, and all of a sudden the ocean underneath you is starting to shift, and you're like, what is happening to me? Okay, so the setup on that is I'm the accidental VC, right? I didn't go to business school. I didn't have a finance degree. I was a journalist. I was a journalist starting at 8, and I was an accidental journalist. I mean, I was offered a position as an intern at a technology publishing company, mostly because I couldn't afford to pay my tuition in college. I was going to Queens College, and I had this professor, Robert Greenberg, who didn't want me to drop out because I couldn't make $750 a semester tuition. That's tells you everything you need to know about my childhood. And he said, congratulations, you've won a scholarship. I've decided to give it to you. And that came with an internship, which was at a technology publishing company called CMP Media. And I, as seems to be the case, once I'm in some place, I just make my way there. So I was there for almost 10 years. Graduated college, became editor of a magazine. But again, this at 27, 28 years old, I started to feel like, what the hell is going on with my life? So let's call it a quarter life crisis started. And I decided that I was just I was offered a few people like Steve Case were offering me a job. I was being offered a job to help run editorial at MSN back when MSN was just getting launched. And none of that felt really appealing until there was this possibility of joining a venture capital firm. And the truth is, I didn't even know what venture capital was. But I knew that there was something really important happening with new companies coming out. And that's always been a driver for me, this sort of intellectual curiosity. So from that point, I left the media job, the journalism, editorial job, and became a venture capitalist. And I joined a firm, good people, but our values were out of alignment. They were misogynistic, anti-Semitic, racist. And I just found myself.
This is Flatiron.
No, this is before Flatiron.
Okay.
Flatiron was what Fred and I launched in response.
Got it.
This was the first firm. And, a perfect example of this is that I had to not make one meeting because I was attending my now 34-year-old son's kindergarten graduation. And I was made fun of. They sent me a Mother's Day card implying that, I wasn't a man. I mean, that's the world I was in. Okay, fast forward through a mutual friend, Fred and I meet, and we're supposed to have our first meeting to talk about potentially coming together. And he cancels.
He was older.
He was older by, well, I will never let him forget that he's 2 years older than me.
Okay. Not that much older.
Right. But he had been a VC for 10 years.
Yeah.
And he canceled our first meeting because he was attending his daughter's kindergarten graduation. And I was like, okay, that's my party. So that's the setup, right? I'm in this space. I'm going through this space. And these things that are so important to me now that I can see clearly, this has been the through line of my life. Things like values and how we treat each other. In my 30s, I had this dichotomy unfolding where the things that were most important to me, I was still able to live them out. I don't mean to imply that, Flatiron wasn't a place for values. It was absolutely a place for values. Fred and I created something magical and successful. But the thing that was hardest for me was that the more success I had, the worse I felt.
And was that because the belief that being successful would make you happy?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it was literally that much.
So you were seeing it face to face, like, I am achieving more than I ever imagined.
More than I could have ever imagined.
And you didn't necessarily feel any better about yourself, which meant maybe there was something really seriously wrong with yourself.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it. And in fact, it wasn't maybe there's something seriously wrong with myself. It confirmed what I always thought to be true about myself, which was that I was fundamentally broken as a person. Because my relationship with depression went all the way back to childhood. And I've been very open about the struggles I experienced as a child, the inherited experience of depression. My mother was bipolar. Father was alcoholic. I detail his history of being adopted and the challenges associated with his depression, and then a soldier in World War II and being part of the occupation army in Germany and dealing with the concentration camps. I mean, the ghosts that haunted my parents ended up haunting me. So that even by the time, this phenomena of being successful but feeling like crap, I was very successful in high school. In first semester college, I attempted suicide. So this relationship with not understanding outward success, inward pain, outward success, inward pain.
Yeah, possibly the larger that gap.
That's exactly right.
The more successful you get, the more of a poser you feel.
That's right.
The more of the...
And the more it confirms that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, yeah. So at 38, you made a change, or did you start to make the change?
Well, it started a few months before. So just to land it in time, I turned 38 in 2001. Okay, so in March of 2001, I think it was March of 2001, just after the NASDAQ peaked in December 1999. And 2000 was this crazy frothy time. I don't know if we're both old enough to remember.
Oh, yeah.
Remember KTEL records?
Yeah.
Okay. KTEL.com was announced and the stock quadrupled.
Yeah, no. This is when we had pets.com. Well, yeah,
it was just insane.
Dogfood.com.
That's right. And then it all started to crash in the spring of 2001. I was on a bunch of different boards of directors. That summer of 2001 was just this awful time period. I was on the board of magazine called The Industry Standard, which was
John Battelle.
John Battelle.
Yeah.
God bless you, John. Which was producing so much revenue. It went from like 15 million in revenue to 150 million in revenue in 2 years. They had to produce 2 magazines, 2 issues every week just to basically soak up all the ads.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the whole thing started to collapse.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this thing unfold. And then I do something extraordinary. The August of 2001, I was invited to go on what became the first of many trips to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And I spent 2 weeks rafting in the Grand Canyon. And it was so great because I entered the Grand Canyon just as the Standard went into bankruptcy, so nobody could reach me. And then I came out and something started to shift inside of me, even before 9/11.
Did you go in there with Bill Plotkin at that time?
No, I went in with a group called Environmental Defense, if you remember the old EDF, and they had a kind of donor-related trip. But anyway, so I go in to the canyon, and I'm at the bottom of the earth. I have been transported 4 billion years back in time. I count that as this really important chrysalis moment.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, what matters? When you look at 4 billion years of history, and I come out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to join JP Morgan, which was my opportunity because I could not stay with Fred and Flatiron and raise a new fund. I knew that was true. I agreed to join JP Morgan on September 10th, 2001.
Really interesting timing.
Really interesting timing. In the morning of September 11th, I'm on a flight. I'm on one like the last flights out of LaGuardia down to DC, and I'm at a breakfast meeting with Tom Daschle,
former senator,
former Senate Majority Leader, which is important because I'm sitting next to him when the Secret Service comes in and says, "Senator, the United States is under attack," and I'm like, "What?" What the hell is happening? That entire day was like this blur. And I think it punctuated the inner-outer dichotomy, the misalignment that was going on. Because I, in response, threw myself into trying to rebuilding the city. I was part of an effort to bring businesses back to downtown Manhattan. I became one of the directors of the New York City Olympic bid effort. We're trying to bring the 2012 games because it felt like my city was targeted.
Yeah.
So it's hard to talk about that process without the setup. So I go in, I officially joined JP Morgan, and by February 2002, I can't do it. It was like it was all performative. And I remember February 2nd, 2002, I had just come from an Olympic bid committee meeting, which was in downtown because nobody wanted to be downtown. And so we had free office space. And I'm walking by Ground Zero, which was still a smoking pile. And I was like, that's it, I'm fucking done. I was fixated on going down into the subway and jumping. I had 3 kids at the time. Married to a lovely person in good therapy with my first modern elder, Dr. Sayers. And I called her up and she said, get your ass in a cab and come see me. So I go out to Long Island. I don't jump. I say to her, I can't do this. Put me in a hospital. And she said the best thing that anybody could say to me in that moment. So what do you want to go to a hospital for? The food sucks. Go to Canyon Ranch. Get a massage every day. Made plans to go to Canyon Ranch. My sister Ann gave me an essay written by Parker Palmer and sent me a copy of Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart. And I picked up, because of Amazon recommendations, Sharon Salzberg's Faith. And so I picked up when Let Your Life Speak by Parker, and those other two books, and I took them to Canyon Ranch. I started to go back to the Chrysalis. I think I fully entered the Chrysalis at that point.
One of the things you're famous for is your question, how am I complicit in creating the conditions
I say I
don't want? How were you complicit? And in what ways were you complicit to creating the conditions you didn't want in your life in your late 30s or early 40s?
So well, God bless
innocence in early midlife.
God bless Dr. Sayers for giving me that question. I mean, I reformulated it more precisely, but Dr. Sayers was a psychoanalyst. And this is important because the challenge with psychoanalysis is it takes forever. The thing about psychoanalysis is it's, in my experience, the most fundamentally transformative form of the work. And if you want to understand psychoanalysis, that question is psychoanalytic, because the question implies something very, very important. And I always say this, when I ask the question, people's natural response is to hear, how have I been responsible for my life? And the problem with that is all it's going to do is gin up your defenses. You're going to say, what an idiot I am. I'm so bad. And that's not useful. That actually blocks the real inquiry. So you asked, how did that first start to come up? So there's this moment. I'm in the midst of being a big mocker, a big VC. I'm like hot shit in New York, and Fred and I are flying all around the world, and we're dropping money, and we're doing these investments. And there's a story I tell where I had to fly to the West Coast. I was based in New York. I had to fly to the West Coast, fire a CEO, get on a plane, and fly back in a single day. And you can do that, right? It's not good for you, but you can do that.
Yeah.
And the story I tell is I flew to the West Coast, fired this fellow, got on the plane, came back, and I got into my house, and I was so exhausted. And at the top of the stairs was my daughter, who's now 32, and she was about 3 or 4 years old at the time. And I look up the top of the stairs and see her, because she had heard me come in, and I spin around and I fall down to the floor. I hit my head against the bathroom door. The door slams. And the last thing I hear is her saying, "Mommy, Mommy, Daddy's dying." As I always say, she didn't deserve that. She didn't deserve to have that memory. So I go into therapy with Dr. Sayers afterwards, and she says to me a really great question. She said, "What's it going to take?" And I said, "What do you mean? What's it going to take until you stop?" And I said, I'm lying on the couch, back to her, and I said, "Bill Gates." I had to have as much money as. And as soon as I said that, it's like, what the fuck am I doing? And, I write a lot about this in Reboot, but I grew up really worried about money. And I always tell this story around lemon drops. My grandfather, Dominic Guido, who had only a 6th grade education, built this little empire of ice delivery in Brooklyn. But he always seemed to have enough. And the symbol for me was he always had a tin of lemon drops that never seemed to be empty. And I always pursued money as if it was a pursuit of lemon drops, as if it was a means to just feel like I was safe enough that I could relax.
What are your lemon drops today? Is it your home? You live in Boulder?
I live in Boulder. My wife and Allie and I have a 40-acre farm with 4 horses. No one has ever asked me that question. The thing that makes me feel safe, which is what I think you're really asking, is human connection. It's the conversations. In some ways, like the way I processed that question was, what would make me feel unsafe if I were missing it? Don't get me wrong, I'm a profound introvert. But to be in conversation like this, human to human, energetic sharing is life affirming. I do what I do, not just to save the 38-year-old version of me again and again and again. I do what I do because, you've seen me. I look in somebody's eyes,
They start crying.
You know why they start crying?
Yeah.
Because they're seen.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I feel seen.
That goes back to a feeling, were you unseen when you were younger? Did you feel unseen?
Yeah, there were aspects of my childhood that were incredibly unsafe. When I think back now through the lens, I'm a father of 3. I'm soon going to be a grandfather. Like, that's a mindfuck. Sorry. Like, I'm 16 years old. How can I be a grandfather? But when I think back to what I and my 6 siblings went through, it was extraordinary. Violence, physical violence, emotional violence, a lack of consistency. And I have long ago made peace with my parents, God rest their souls, because they themselves inherited a boatload of crap. And God rest the souls of my grandparents. They themselves inherited a boatload of crap. It goes back. Right.
And your book Reunion.
Right. Talks about that.
Yeah.
That's right. Our ancestors are haunted, or many of us. Did I feel seen? I felt loved, but I did not feel safe. I think the thing about being seen is, and we talked a lot about that this week, when we're seeking that sense of belonging, I think what it means is that our shoulders can drop from our ears. and we can be our worst possible self and know that we're still loved. It doesn't give you permission to be a jerk.
Yeah.
But when you think of your partners who, like, okay, Chip's going through what Chip's going through right now. I'm going to go over here and do whatever, right? That's belonging.
Yeah.
That's like, it's that, somebody said it this week with us, that radical acceptance that Tara Brach speaks about. So being seen, I think, is a foundational component to the love, safety, and belonging that we're all deeply seeking.
Let's give it some dates. You went into your midlife chrysalis around late 30s.
Yeah, I was always precocious.
Yes, you were. And we can have multiple midlife chrysalises, but how long do you think this lasted? And
What day is today?
when do you feel like you came out of that transformative era? We call it the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
But the midlife chrysalis is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
Because it really is a transformational metamorphosis era.
Yeah, and it's like you become goo.
Yeah.
In the middle of that cocoon, right?
Right.
Ill-formed and all. When did I start to come out of it? I would say that it came out in stages, so I'm probably similar to many folks. And there were things that I was doing that I look back on now and I say, oh, that's what he was doing. Like, I crossed the polar ice cap in Greenland. Like, what? I mean, I remember waking up in a tent and watching a little thermometer hanging from the top of the tent, the tent drop from 20 above to 50 below. Like, what the hell am I doing here? I went rafting everywhere.
So you were sort of on there was a call to adventure. You were having your hero's journey on some level.
I think that's right.
You were having this call to adventure that was meant to sort of take you through a gauntlet.
Yeah.
And it sounds like some of it was very much the physical gauntlet.
Yes.
As opposed to the psychological gauntlet, although that was happening at the same time.
That's right.
Did it last 5 years? Did it last 2 years? Did it last 10 years?
I think it was closer to 10 than 5. And I think it was most intense from like age 39 to say 45. Because in that period, I
had the kids.
I went from reading Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart in February of 2002 to taking my vows as a Buddhist in March of 2003. I just dove deep into everything. And so you're right. It wasn't just a physical. There was a physical thing going on. There was a reconnecting with the land that was absolutely essential. I mean, I remember taking a Jungian, a stone carving workshop with a Jungian analyst.
As in Carl Jung?
Yeah. As in Carl Jung, to really try to understand what was going on. It was an amazing experience. I still have the piece of work that I carved. I did Reiki. I did dance therapy. I reconnected with my body in a way that had felt so disconnected during this time. It's like I discovered that I love to move. I discovered that I had a voice. I could sing. You don't want to hear me sing, but it was like this period of just physical, emotional, existential exploration.
I'm learning how to be a beginner over and over again and being open with being crap at some of this stuff.
I thought you were going to finish the sentence differently. I thought you were going to finish the sentence learning how to be a human. That's what it really felt like.
And so ironically, the chrysalis was a dissolution. It was something that's dissolving and something that was forming.
Yes.
What was dissolving?
A whole set of beliefs about what it was going to take for me to feel love, safety, and belonging. The person I was supposed to be dissolved.
And what formed was?
Me.
Yeah.
Like, if anybody listening to this show says, oh, I like what that guy does, it's a direct result of my willingness to be, as D.H. Lawrence said, sponged out. wiped out. Because a lot of people, I think, resist the dissolution.
Well, we call it the dark night of the soul when it's really the dark night of the ego
Yeah.
in many ways. It's your soul's not dark. I mean, your ego.
I think it's the dark night of the ego that then lets the soul come into the light.
That's right. Yeah. This is they say a shaman's a wounded healer. In many ways,
Yeah.
you went through your wounded healer period and continue to go through that. You're a deeply felt human. When did you start doing the coaching work?
I started training in various modalities in 2004, 2005.
Yeah, so it was not too long after that.
Yeah. And I remember making a choice not to be a psychoanalyst. Because if you're in a psychoanalytic tradition, and if you're an anal sand, which I think is the weirdest word possible, that's what they describe them.
Oh, I think it was anal sand.
Of course you would. What happens is...
That's what happens on a beach trip when you go to a nude beach.
That's right. Go in the water and wash off. What happens is you're so transformed that you want to do that thing. And I remember making this choice because there's a whole other part of me, Chip, which is like, I've been in your shoes. I know what it means to grow a business again and again and again and again. And I didn't want to shut off that part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the task that I walked my way into was combining both of those worlds. And in a way, I remember having tea with Pema children one time. This is years and years ago. I was very I still have an ego, of course, but I remember talking about, I just want to sit in the back of the room and be a student. And she just shook her head and she said, boy, your ego's got a number in you. So what? No, I want to sit in the back of the room. She goes, that's ego. Your karma is to combine the Dharma and business. And the path to happiness is not by ignoring your karma. I think that that's a really important through line for people. If you're going through that dissolution, if it's possible to hold on to I don't care what word you use for it, but what is your work to do? I think that that's essential. It's like it becomes what's the Greek myth where the hero enters that cave and...
Not the Plato's cave.
No, where he's unwinding the thread that one of the goddesses has left for him so he can find his way out of the maze. It's the goddess name from whom spiders get the word arachnid. It's this thread that guides you through the maze.
Yeah. The through line.
That's that through line.
Yeah. If you could go back to that 38-year-old and say to him, I've learned a few things in the last 23 years. What's the number one thing you'd say to him?
You're going to be okay.
Okay. And you have been okay. More than okay.
Yeah.
Let's move into that part of your life, because the more than okay is a great reminder that on the other side of the chrysalis is the butterfly. For you, the butterfly was becoming a business Buddhist coach. I mean, somebody who business Buddhist boot camp. Right. Let's just alliterate this all the way to, but along the way, you had some modern elders.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Pema and Parker.
Yeah.
Talk about what you've learned from some of your modern elders, the people who were, as we say in the MEA world, as curious as they were wise.
Parker, I always say that I feel like I must have done something right in a previous life, because the authors of those three books, Sharon Salzberg, Pema Chodron, and Parker Palmer, have become dear friends, which is an extraordinary statement to be able to make.
Pema was just at your home.
Pema was just at my home.
At Boulder, just with you and your wife.
Yeah.
Hanging out.
Yeah. And I hadn't seen her in about 6 years. Various things from the pandemic and all. And she was coming through Boulder on her way from Crestone, going back to the monastery at Gampo Abbey up in Nova Scotia. She had to stop for a dentist appointment. So she came to the house and she got to see our horses, which was a delight because when she was a little girl, she grew up with horses. And to watch a horse-crazy person reconnect with a horse is one of the most delightful things in the world. You know, it was just a few weeks ago and she sat on our living room couch and I'm ever the student with her. And I'm always like, you know, in this case, tell me what to do about the world. Because the world feels really harsh right now. And every time I was like trying to land something with her, she would just sort of scoot away. And she would go, because we have a view of the mountains, and she'd say, boy, those mountains look great. And I was like, I wanted, like, how do I respond to a world of systemic othering? How do I respond where there's so much division? Because during the pandemic, one of the things I reconnected with was a wonderful little book by her called Comfortable with Uncertainty. And in it, she has this powerful teaching that our task is to sit like a mountain in the midst of a hurricane. And sometimes the hurricane is the weather inside of us, and sometimes the hurricane is the world at large. And I use that imagery all the time. So I wanted something similar. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Like the world's... And she's just like, yeah, those mountains are really cool. And I'm like, fuck me. And then she finally says, don't catch the flu.
Or don't spread the flu.
Don't spread the flu.
Yeah, that's what you told me earlier.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Don't spread the flu. And she started quoting her teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And what she was saying was, don't spread the flu of hopelessness and helplessness. So when you feel those symptoms, take care of yourself. Do not walk into a crowded room and start screaming in a panic mode. Democracy is going to end. We're all going to die. Doesn't mean ignore a threat, but it doesn't mean don't spread hopelessness and helplessness. I mean, she's still teaching me. You asked, what have I learned? The thing I've learned the most from Parker, and, you know, he's been my writing buddy. He's been, you know, we've helped navigate all sorts of depression, all sorts of challenges. Two things that I learned from him. The first is last year I went to visit him in Madison and we were sitting on his back porch. We spent most of a day and a half just laughing, which is very Parker. And I left and I wrote a phrase to myself, which I then printed out and it's sitting on my monitor at home. And the phrase was, what matters is what matters. And what that means to me is we can get all caught up in the stuff that doesn't matter. And to remember to bring our attention to what matters. So what matters? Parker's probably his greatest character trait that I need to emulate more and more is humility. Humility, kindness. He will always defer. I watch him do this time and time again. Someone will come to him and say, in effect, through all that projection, oh, master, tell me what to do. And he will laugh and gently deflect it and say, in effect, you already know what to do. You just forgot. Now, isn't that a brilliant piece of eldering? And then Sharon, God bless Sharon. I talk to Sharon every 2 weeks. And we sit in meditation, usually over Zoom. And what I have learned is the ability from her is the ability to be with your inner turmoil and it all be okay. Like I said to her just 2 weeks ago, I was like, you know, it feels like the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Everything's on fire. I don't even know, like, are we going to have a country in a year? And yet I feel okay. And she goes, that's equanimity. So don't spread the flu. Don't give over to hopelessness and helplessness. Be humble and kind. And stay connected to what equanimity is. Equanimity is the ability to look at the world, to see clearly, its challenges, and still be okay with yourself. What an act of resistance equanimity is. I am still lovable, even though the world's falling apart.
That seems to be a quality that one might be able to grow into. And it, some people may feel that at a young age. What have been some of the upsides for you of getting older?
Well, what you just said.
Yeah.
My capacity to find that place with humor, with self-deprecation.
What else has gotten better? There's this U curve of happiness that suggests after approximately age 50, people on average have greater life satisfaction.
I know I've been cursing, and you know that I come from Brooklyn, so my wife's favorite book is a little picture book called The Girl Who Gave Zero Fucks.
Yeah.
I think what's gotten better is my ability to give zero fucks.
Yeah.
In my ability, it's not
what
that
does that mean to you? Because some people sometimes misinterpret that to think, oh,
I don't care.
You're the curmudgeon with the gun on his lawn.
It's actually the opposite.
Okay.
What it means to me is I'm going to be me. I am just going to be me. And sometimes I will catch myself just worried about, well, what does Chip think of me? We were together with a group of 22 gorgeous, unfolding, some of them in the middle of their dissolution.
Yeah.
People this week. And there are moments of like, how do they feel about me? But for the most part, the more I return to I know who I am. I know what is my work to do. I know what that through line is. That's what it means to me. It means
you're not distracted with all of this other stuff on the landscape, and you're more focused on who you are and how you're going to show up.
And what my work is to do.
We love people as they get older who are more present. A baby's present, and so's an 85-year-old, if we get it right. And the sense of presence is about wholeness.
And alignment.
Erik Erikson talked about this idea of the last of the 8 stages of life was about integrity versus despair. Integrity is about wholeness.
Yes.
It's about taking the polarities inside of you, the masculine, the feminine, the introvert, the extrovert, the depressed, the optimistic, the gravitas, the levity.
Yes.
The curious, the wise, the yin, the yang, and being able to take all of that.
Yes.
And make it whole.
Yeah.
Integrate, not compartmentalize.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say that is, in hearing your story, that is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, it really resonates. I mean, part of Parker's message in one of his most famous books, Let Your Life Speak, probably his most famous book is The Courage to Teach, but a lesser known book is A Hidden Wholeness. And he speaks about life divided no more. Divided no more. And he speaks about life on the Mobius strip. And he uses the image of the Mobius strip because if you think about the Mobius strip.
Yep.
So the Mobius strip is this shape that mathematics can produce where there is, in fact, no difference. The inner surface and the outer surface are the same. And that's what's extraordinary about that as an image. The inner and the outer are the same. And if you want to say, what is it, Jerry, about life on that other side of the U-curve? It's that more often than not, the inner me and the outer me are the same me. And that
feels good.
Oh my God, it feels like, it's like the weight. Anna Quindlen called it the backpack full of bricks. You get to put the backpack down. You don't have to worry. Because you just get to be you. It's like, yeah, I wish I could lose 20 pounds. Yeah, I wish my hair weren't falling out. I mean, it's to live and then teach from that place. To be in relationship, in conversation with other human beings from that place. I mean, that feels like God. Feels like the divine.
And yet we have in the United States, a culture that speaks to the idea that if you could make it through your midlife crisis, all you have to look forward to is disease, decrepitude, and death, as if there's not some unexpected pleasures of aging. So when you think about words like old or aging or midlife or retirement, do any of those words have a positive valence to you? I mean, any of them?
Yeah, I mean, I was in conversation just a few weeks ago with someone, and he just plopped a word out in a podcast, which was impermanence. And what I found myself, like impermanence, and in Buddhist cosmology and theology, impermanence is the source of suffering because we want to hold things on to just as they are, and we can't stand that things fall apart all the time. And I could totally relate to that feeling. And what I found myself thinking about was actually my children, who are now fully fledged adults, who can talk to their accountants without even talking to me, which is like shocking. And, you know, I'll announce for the first time on a podcast, my daughter is pregnant.
And you're going to be a grandpa for the first time.
And what's amazing is, you know, I said it earlier this week, I'm enjoying the bittersweetness of that. You want to talk about what feels good about aging? The ability to enjoy bittersweetness. It doesn't mean I only turn to the sweetness and don't feel the bitterness of impermanence and change. It is sharp and real, and I see it. I have siblings who are aging. I have a sister who has dementia, and it's heartbreaking. And the sweetness is, it causes me to remember her taking my brother John and I to the park to play on a seesaw and being a source of comfort in all that chaos. The upside of aging is the capacity to withstand impermanence. Not more than withstand it. Enjoy it. I mean, you talk about culture. We have a culture that says impermanence is bad.
Yeah.
Change is bad.
And death is bad.
And death is bad.
Like, don't die. Let's be Bronson. let's live forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of Pema's most important teachings for me in When Things Fall Apart is that when we resist change, we are resisting life. The only time where change slows down to the point where it stops is death. I'll be damned. What's the line from Dylan Thomas? Rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah.
Do not go gentle into that night.
Yeah.
I'm going to dance until I can no longer move. That's, to me, the other side of the U-curve. That, to those who are in the chrysalis right now, that's the other side of the chrysalis.
Yeah.
I watch you, my friend. What people don't know, because they haven't been to one of your events, is that when you come back after a break, this man is dancing. He's dancing his way through his life.
60s. Yes. Yes.
Whether it's illness, whether it's depression, whether it's challenges in the world, you dance.
Because I still can. And, you know, the thing that we need to ask ourselves is, what are the things that as we get older are going to be harder to do? Double down on that now. Double down on that trip to, you know, Greenland and living in a tent. Double down on learning to surf. Double down on learning Spanish. Double down on the things that you'll regret if you don't do it now. Because
what I know about my friend Chip is that even if his legs can't move, his heart's still going to dance.
Oh, for sure.
Because his eyes are going to dance.
Thank you. Yeah. And listen, to the camera here, this is the first time I've actually interviewed anybody in this format for the podcast. And yes, we've had 2 public events with Maria Shriver and Michael Franti, but I'm a beginner here. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just asked.
Doing pretty good, huh?
I'm okay, I guess. But if we can't learn how to become a beginner for the rest of our lives, then we're learning how to end and not try anything. And we know what I know about the 3 stages of transitions is there's the ending, the messy, middle, and the beginning. And the beginning is often what happens after 50, which is the irony of it all, is that there's so many beginnings. It can happen.
And the regret I'm having right now
Yeah.
is that the camera's not focused on your eyes. And if you could see his eyes as he's talking about this, the word twinkle doesn't do it justice. He lights up when he talks about this. And that's going to be you forever.
Well, the beautiful thing about starting the world's first midlife wisdom school is that hopefully I get wiser over time, and hopefully there's value to me 20 years from now at 84 doing the same thing. Two last questions. One is about MEA and the experience of this week and the experience. This is your second time teaching here in a public workshop. You've also been here for a private retreat. Why does the world need midlife wisdom schools?
I think the world needs spaces for like, if we think about that, go back to that chrysalis, I think the image to hold on to about what you've created here is that this is the cocoon. This is a container. Nature evolved the cocoon to keep that creature safe as it evolved. The beauty in this place and in this effort may feel like it's in the wisdom coming from the teachers and the faculty, but it's really not. I mean, this morning before breakfast, earlier in the week, I taught the participants something we call partner walk, where it's a particular way to be in dialogue with each other. And I just watched them just do it on their own, to go out and to be in community together. So I think that the thing that is most important about MEA is the space for community. To quote Parker again, there is individual work that we can only do in community. Now, he was speaking from his Quaker tradition, but I think that that's really what you're doing here, is you're creating the capacity for individual work that can only be done in community.
One of my co-founders, Jeff, says wisdom is not taught, it's shared.
That's right.
And that's really what you're saying.
That's right.
How do you create the space for people to summon their wisdom?
That's right.
And share it with others.
That's right. And to build on that for a second, I know we want to start to wrap, but to build on that for a second, one of the challenges of entering the chrysalis is that you feel so fucking alone.
Yeah.
So when you were reflecting back to me what I was feeling, and I was reflecting you what I was feeling, it's like I looked at you and it's like, oh yeah, he knows, he understands. And we live in a society where we don't look each other in the eye. We don't tell each other, I see you. And so when you create the capacity for people to dissolve together, it alleviates the suffering of, it's only me who feels lost.
We have a term, collective effervescence, that comes from Emil Durkheim, the idea of the dissolution of the ego and the emergence of the communal joy. And that is really what happens in a week together, is you really get to see that you're not alone.
You know what's startling to me?
What?
Whether it's Greek mythology or religious spiritual wisdom traditions or even artistic expression, the message is consistently, you're not alone. And yet, we still feel so alone.
Yeah. And many of the structures we've historically had in society have been dissolving, whether it's the Kiwanis Club or it's, the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And there's a sense that people are sort of on their own.
Yeah.
And, and the challenge with a capitalist culture is it can make you even feel more that way.
Yeah. And on our own and in competition with one another.
Yeah.
And the thing I'll lift up, I said it to you earlier this week, the thing I so enjoy is how often you've referenced the alumni. Because it's not just the inspirational experience. You come here, you get a few days away from your phone, you eat great food, you live in a great environment, and then you go home. It's like you are seeking to answer the question of how do I stay connected to that experience?
Yeah. You got to. I mean, I was on the board of the Esalen Institute for 10 years, an amazing institution. But once you leave there and that beautiful campus in Big Sur, it wears off very quickly.
And you actually feel worse.
You can, because you know what it can feel like when it feels spectacular.
Yeah.
Last question. Someone comes to you, 20 years younger than you, someone in their early 40s, maybe someone at 38.
Yeah.
Comes to you and says, Jerry, I want to tap into your wisdom. I'd like to have lunch with you next week. And at the lunch, I'd love it to have you come to the lunch with 3 bumper stickers of wisdom. So a short element of wisdom, but let's keep it to 1. Let's keep it simple. 1 bumper sticker of wisdom. It actually has your wisdom fingerprints all over it, Jerry. Something that through the school of hard knocks you've learned. And what would be that 1 bumper sticker of wisdom, and a brief origin story of that, or you can refer to something you've already talked about. What would be that? And don't get too worked up that like, oh no, I only get one of these the rest of my life.
No.
This is just in this moment.
I mean, it's really quite simple, and it's kind of what we've said already. And it's a 2-parter, okay? It's one thing with 2 parts. You're going to be okay, and you're not alone. Mm-hmm. I always say to people who approach me in that way, just think of me as an older sibling looking back over his shoulder saying, come on, it's okay. This is the way. When I wrote Reboot, I gave the galley to another wisdom teacher of mine, my therapist, Jerry Rule, who's a brilliant, brilliant therapist. And he looked at it and he said, for those lost in the woods, this is another stone in the path, saying this is the way to go. And I think that that's the most important thing, is there are so many of us who've passed this way before. Just follow. Just follow us. Follow Chip.
Follow Jerry.
Follow Chip on Instagram.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Chip.
Yeah. And
What a delight.
have a beautiful drive home.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching the Midlife Chrysalis podcast.